my eyes to truth. Open my hands to give freely. Open my hands to give freely. Open my lips to good words, to pure words. Open my lips to good words, to pure words. Open my heart to love. Open my eyes to truth. Open my hands to give freely. Open my lips to good words, to pure words. Open my heart to love. Open my heart to love. Open my heart to love.
Now page 10. How beautiful, how wonderful a day it is.
Ma yafe hayom, Shabbat shalom. Ma yafe hayom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Ma yafe hayom. Shabbat shalom. Ma yafe hayom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Ma yafe hayom. Shabbat shalom. Ma yafe hayom. Shabbat shalom.
We continue on page 12.
Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Naria, naria, letzuri shenu, nekadma fanav betodah. Naria, naria, letzuri shenu, bizmirot naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai.
We continue now with L'Chadodi on pages 20 and 21. As we reach the final verse, we invite you to rise and we join together in welcoming the Sabbath bride. So when we reach the final verse, we'll signal to rise, for all to rise in body or in spirit. For now, though, we join together in singing.
L'Chadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nikabela. L'Chadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad hishmianu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, l'shem u'tiferet, ולתהילה לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה, לקראת שבת, לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, ראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך ומאורי, אורי אורי, שדברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה. בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה וצחולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת, נקבלה.
We continue on page 22.
With Mizmor Shir. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בחינות. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. כי שמחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידיך ארנס. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. ולזמר לשמך עליון.
We turn ahead now to page 26, and we rise as we join together in the Chatzi Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon yomechon. U'chaye b'chol Beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala. Uvizman kariv. V'meru.
Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach, le'olam ul'al me'almaya, yitbarach.
Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitbar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha,
Richu.
le'la min kol birchata v'shirata,
Tushbechata v'nechemata, damiram be'alma.
V'yimeru.
Amen.
Baruchu et Adonai hamivorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamivorach le'olam va'ed. On page 30, we continue in the middle of the page. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are the creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim.
Day and night, show us the way, teaching us to number our days. When we rise and when we lie down, Ahavat Olam, Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'shpatim, Otanu limadeta. Ve'orech yameinu, Yirahem neged, Yomam v'layla, show us the way, teaching us to number our days. When we rise, when we lie down, Ahavat Olam, Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'shpatim, Otanu limadeta.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam אלוהיך, בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. May be seated. On page 39 or 157, we join together at the top of the page. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, and that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Da 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 ya 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 da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh nora tehilo dohoseh feled nora tehilo hoseh feled. Let's do that again. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh nora tehilo dohoseh feled nora tehilo hoseh feled. Yadais. Yada da da yada da 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 yada da 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 yada da 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 yada da da yada da 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 yada da 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 yada da da da. Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? Yada da da yada da 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 yada da 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 yada da 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 yada da da yada da 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 yada da 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 yada da da da.
Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
In the midst of our celebration of freedom this week, we've watched as too many are living with fear, with attacks. There have been groups that have been visiting the borders between Poland and Ukraine. I've spoken with a number of rabbinic friends who have been there and who are reporting the same thing, that the Israelis are doing extraordinary work, that as soon as refugees cross the border from Ukraine into Poland, the very first thing they see are tents with huge Israeli flags. and how different that view is to the last time that refugees were fleeing that part of the world. And just the same, we sit in our homes and celebrate a feast of freedom, marveling at how free our lives are. We're connected to them and they're connected to us. And while we send our prayers and our good wishes, we need to do more. We need to make sure that ours is a world that doesn't let despots just do as they please. We have to allow our prayers to encourage us, to incite us to action, to push us to create a world that truly is more free, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. We need to live the words of our prayers. Let there truly be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. God, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. O God, blessed are you, the guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, regardless of where they live, and most especially over Jerusalem, the Jerusalem that belongs to all of us. Amen.
Amen. We continue with Vishamra on page 44.
And you're allowed to clap on the 2 and the 4.
What about the
Not the 1
and
and 3.
No, good friends don't let friends clap on 1 and 3. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat B'toratam V'lidolam Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat L'doratam B'lidolam Beni Uven B'nei Yisrael Odi Le'olam Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat L'doratam B'lidolam Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat L'doratam B'lidolam Ki sheshet Yamim Asa Adonai et Hashmayim ve'et haaretz Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat L'doratam B'lidolam Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat L'doratam B'lidolam Ubayom Hashvi'i Shabbat B'nafash Shabbat Vayinafash Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat L'doratam B'lidolam Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat L'doratam B'lidolam
invite everyone to rise in body or spirit as we turn the page and join together on page 46.
Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagi, Tehilatecha, Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagi, Tehilatecha, Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagi, Tehilatecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora El Elyon Gomel chasadim tovim v'konei hakol V'zocher chasdei avot v'imahot U'mevii gula livnei v'neihem Leman shemo be'ahava Melech chozer Moshiach u'magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham v'ezrat Sarah Ata gibor le'olam Adonai, mechayei hakol ata ra ve'hoshia, morid hatal, mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, u'matir asurim, ומקיים אמונתו בשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. We continue with our private prayers.
יהיו לרצון יראה פי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי וגואלי אדוני צורי וגואלי May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. יהיו לרצון יראה פי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי וגואלי אדוני צורי וגואלי
As we ask God to accept the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts, we also ask for healing for those of our loved ones who are in need of healing of mind or body or spirit. On this Shabbat, especially, we think of Lenore Wasidlo, Samuel Kaplan, Doug Paul, Jerry Ann Morgan, Jack Glasser, Judy Moyer, Alex Botkin, Katrina Blackburn, Manuel Gordon, Sheila Ostro, Max Loeb, Susan Audrey Eichler, Ken Bleacher, Shirley Goldstein, Ann Rockwell, Ruth Goldman, Alan Wolk, George Gurneth, Kathy Lowry, Jimmy Klein, Sandy Wasserman, Stanley W., Michael L., Howie G., Max, Oscar, Gary Mason, Seal Wasp, Susan Horn, Leslie C., Adam C., Michael Mallinger, Pat Fields, Eddie Feigelstock, Steve Belkin, Catherine Hinman King, Marilyn Aronson, and if there's anyone else that you would like to share with us at this time, I invite you to do so.
Heidi Tomasco, Lori Roselle, Joey DeLuca, Baruch Benjamin Ben Yaakov Vachaya, Sharon Ben Penina Vachayim, Laser, John, Cheryl Sheckman, Jerry Spargel, Shirley Spargel.
We hope for wholeness of body and of spirit. Page 371 or 253.
Sheberach avotenu bechor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength to bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu v'kor habracha lamotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit,
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rofeh hacholim. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, healer of the sick. And now a moment to share good things, birthdays, anniversaries. Who's got good news to share? What did Wisconsin win this week?
My birthday is next week, but I can't be here. So
Happy birthday.
April 29th, I will be 54.
Many happy more. Do you want to announce your father's birthday?
No, he handled it.
All right.
Some of you know this. I want to give a shout out to our member Bob Kraut, who was just made a university professor at Carnegie Mellon, which is a huge deal.
Well, I gave notice to my boss, and my last day of that job is going to be next Friday, and I'm going to celebrate my retirement by taking a 2-week trip to Spain by myself, renting a car.
Muy bueno. How's your Spanish?
Poco.
Who else has something good to celebrate?
I got my first author research paper published in a peer-reviewed journal this week.
Nice. Congratulations.
Which journal?
Health Services Research.
That's one of the good ones. Who else has something good to share?
We got to have a Seder with people in our house last Friday.
What a treat.
It was very exciting. It's a family that we celebrate most of the Jewish holidays with, and they are not Jewish, and it's been a while since we've been able to celebrate something in person with them.
Nice. Being back together had a certain treat for all of us, I think, finally after. So I can say it, go ahead.
One of my granddaughters was accepted into veterinary school, so we're very
Mazel tov.
excited.
Nice. Who else has something? I can say it without them here. We got 2 report cards in the mail, and 2 kids both are on the honor roll, which is a nice thing. If they were here, they would get mad at me for saying it out loud, but they're not, so I can. Ha!
We'll just make it into a meme for them.
Sure.
And Lynn Fields shares that she was just hired to write another textbook for real estate.
Nice. Is she going to dedicate it to Temple Sinai? Oh, look, she said yes, she is planning to dedicate it to the temple. How very nice of her.
Just excited that the workers are out of my house.
Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu. Yase shalom, yase shalom, shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, yase shalom, shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael. Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu. Yase shalom, yase shalom, shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, yase shalom, shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael.
Shabbat Shalom. Rules are made to be broken, or so the saying goes. Of course, we usually say that because we don't want to follow certain rules. They bind us, they limit us, they contain us. Maybe it's for our own good, maybe it's to protect others, maybe it's to assert the authority of whoever's making the rules. But many of us, even if we tend to be rule followers, find ourselves pushing against rules and boundaries. Sometimes, if we feel like it, we ignore the rule entirely, or when we think that we won't be caught, or we try to find workarounds to avoid being bound by the law. In the 1st century before the Common Era, when Jews had at least some semblance of governing authority in the land of Israel and the Second Temple still stood, the Torah was the document that provided the legal framework for every aspect of the Jewish community. And as with codes of law, sometimes people ignored rules and statutes in the Torah. One of the Torah laws that people really didn't like to follow is found towards the end of Leviticus, actually not in this week's Torah portion, and in Deuteronomy. The rule is as follows, that every 7 years, all debts have to be forgiven. To be clear, it's not 7 years from the start of the loan, it's every 7th year in an ongoing cycle, in the Shemitah year, which, if you remember from my High Holiday sermon, we are currently in. As you might imagine, creditors didn't like having to forgive debts every 7 years. If they lent money to someone, they wanted it back. Otherwise, they would have just gifted it. They might try to set terms to be paid, for the loan to be paid before the end of the 6th year, but sometimes the debtor just couldn't pay it back. Knowing the risk of losing money, creditors often stopped lending in the 6th year of the 7-year cycle, which meant that every 7 years or so, people couldn't get loans. And what happens when people can't get loans? Even in a not-so-free market economy like that of Second Temple times, poverty increases and the economy tanks. What may have been a healthy, functioning society no longer works well because people can't take care of themselves, let alone others. The great sage Hillel saw this cycle of social health and crisis and knew that something had to be done. He instituted what's called a takana, a legal repair, to address the needs of creditors, debtors, and society as a whole. This takana, called prosbul, allowed creditors to sell debts to a court. And since the debt was no longer held by an individual, it didn't have to be forgiven in the Shemitah year. While this did mean that debtors would continue to have to pay off their loans, even beyond the Shemitah year, it did allow them to still get loans in the 6th year. Not a perfect solution, but it kept society functional. This Shabbat, since we are following the Israeli calendar, we're reading Parshat Achrei Mot, which describes, among other things, the Yom Kippur ritual. Nowadays, our Yom Kippur observance usually focuses on our individual mistakes and how we might do better in the coming year. In ancient times, though, those individual mistakes and sins would have been taken care of periodically throughout the year, if not on a daily or weekly basis. So the biblical Yom Kippur and the Yom Kippur of the ancient land of Israel didn't actually deal with the sins of individuals. Instead, it focused on the sins of leaders and their households and the community as a whole. Yom Kippur was a day for reflecting on the ways in which the community has failed to create and uphold a healthy, functional, and holy society, and then to start the process of repairing it. Can you imagine if we had an annual day of societal soul searching? If we regularly reviewed how our laws and policies keep our communities whole and healthy, and which ones cause harm? And then if we instituted changes that would both protect the vulnerable and ensure the strength of the community as a whole? While we do have annual addresses from leaders about the state of the community, whether it's the city, the state, or the union, these reflections tend to focus on maintaining and gaining power, if I can be just a tiny bit cynical. Challenges are reframed as opportunities or blamed on previous leaders. The leader has certain priorities that they want to promote, and while they are often important, they usually don't get to the heart of the problems that face our society. And maybe the problems are too big. Certainly, there's also too much partisanship today for one leader to be like Hillel and help institute the sweeping policy changes that our cities, states, and countries need. I'll admit, there is no evidence to suggest that Hillel instituted his takana as a result of reflection leading up to the Yom Kippur ritual. But given that Yom Kippur is just 10 days after the New Year starts, which is when a Shemitah year would start, it wouldn't surprise me that there is a connection. Regardless, I think we lost a great deal in our communities and in our world when the Yom Kippur ritual of ancient Israel switched from dealing with society-wide failings to individual personal failings. Yes, ensuring the health and sanctity of the relationships between individuals is essential, and so is ensuring the well-being of our society. And often healthy communities lead to healthy individuals and vice versa. I would love to wrap this up and leave you with a clear path forward for reinstituting an annual day of communal reflection and repentance. I think our society would be vastly improved by examining what's working, what's not, and why. But on this Shabbat, at the end of Pesach, and when we read about the Yom Kippur ritual, I hope and pray for a time when communities and society as a whole can be healthy, functional, and most of all, holy. Shabbat Shalom. A few announcements. First, thank you to our greeters, Susie and David Hauptman. Our musical program is made possible with generous support by an anonymous donor. Tomorrow, we have Torah study at 8:30 on site and online. Our informal Shabbat morning service at 9:15, also on site and online. And our movie night, monthly movie night, An American Pickle, which you will be able to see on Zoom. That is at 7 p.m. from 7 to 9:30. You'll get to watch the movie together and then stay online afterwards to talk about it. If you have questions, contact Sunshine Figlio. On Sunday, it is our last Sunday of Next Door. Hadley, are you so pumped?
It's going to be my last one for 5 years.
It's also going to be my last one. So we are celebrating that with an end-of-the-year picnic hosted by Watts. That's at 11:30. And I look forward to seeing our next door families and potentially other affiliated folks there. On Monday, April 25th, that's this coming Monday from 7 to 8 p.m., is an online evening with Dan Grunfeld by the Grace of the Game. And it is sponsored by Temple Sinai's Brotherhood and the Men's Club of Park Synagogue in suburban Cleveland. So it's nice to be able to have a partnership. Parsha on Wednesday at noon on site and online. Evening meditation with Rhonda Rosen at 6 p.m. on Wednesday on Zoom. And next Friday is Volunteer Appreciation Shabbat. So there will be a dinner at 5:30 where our staff will be cooking dinner as a way to say thank you to all of you who volunteer and support our congregation. You need to register online so we know how much food to make, but the dinner is free, and then we will have services here afterwards at 7 o'clock, including birthday blessings. So if you have an April birthday, even if you can't be there, Rick, let us know, and we will make sure to announce your name and your birthday, your age if you choose, and celebrate with you. We look forward to spending that time with you. We are going to continue now on page 278 or 570 in the brackets. We are in the period between Pesach and what holiday? Shavuot, in this period called the Omer. Come on, I got to keep you all on your toes. We are counting the Omer, which is how many days? And the rabbi answers the question. What was that? Okay, so we've got a 33 and a 40 and 49.
33 actually is significant.
Yes, the 33rd day of the 49-day Omer period is significant. It's called Lag BaOmer. It's the day when a plague that was affecting the students of Rabbi Akiva stopped. But we are not quite there yet. It's in a few weeks. But for now, we're going to offer the blessing that is on page 278. Oh, one last question, because I don't have the slides up so you can't see what the picture is. What are we counting with the 49 days other than the period between Pesach and Shavuot? What's an Omer? Grain. What kind of grain? It is, an omer is a sheaf, and it's specifically referring to sheaves of barley. We are counting the growth of the barley, which would be harvested in time for Shavuot, the feast of the first fruits, when the first barley would be brought to the temple as an offering.
We could be eating kasha every week to celebrate the Omer.
No, we'd have to wait until Shavuot to eat the kasha.
You're strict.
Eat kasha whenever you want, now that Pesach is over. Okay, 278. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al spirat haomer. Our praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer. Hayom shiva yom shehem shavua echad La Omer. Today is the 7th day, which is 1 week of the Omer. We continue now with Aleinu on page 586 or 282. Please rise in body or spirit.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula le'otzer breshit, Shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, Shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'nemar v'haya Adonai, v'melech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo, Echad. Please be seated. We pause now to recall those who came before us, those who gave us life, those who created this congregation and this community, As you hear the name of your loved one mentioned, we invite you to rise. We recall those whose yahrzeit occurs in the coming days: Jeremy Edelman, Henry Adelsheimer, Martha Yorkin Berman, Paul Kaplan, Joseph Choduk, Arthur Cohen, Laura Michelle Kolker, Jules Cutler, Isabel Dickens, Rose Gershuni, Norma Gespes, Anna Gomberg, Henrietta Grossman, Norbert Hockman, Seinwin James, William Jones, Samuel Kraus, Daniel Landis, David Lefkowitz, Harry Levin, Marcy Kligman Miller, Samuel Reedboard, Seymour Ritter, Elizabeth Schmerling, Martha Brown Schwendinger, John Silberblatt, Rebecca Silverman, Samuel Singer, Milton Smith, Rebecca Snyderman, Bernice Sonneklaar, Norma Stockman, Jacob Tanner, George Teplitz, Irving Waharftig, David Wiles, Eleanor Zaremski, Adam Paisalevich, Celia Eichler Morris, Earl Schwartz, Josephine Fields, and we add to those names the names of those taken from us only in recent weeks: Sheila Podolsky-Siddig, Agnes Roche, and just the other day we learned of the passing of Chuck Mahan. The funeral for Chuck will take place Sunday at the Temple Sinai Memorial Park at 2 p.m. We join together as a congregation in rising and in the words of the Kaddish found on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon, uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam l'omei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudashah b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May God grant peace and comfort to all of us who are bereaved, and together we say, amen. We invite you to join us after the conclusion of services for an Oneg Shabbat in the auditorium. For now, though, we conclude with Dodi Li, which is found on pages 10 and 11.
Dodi li ve'ani lo haroeh b'shoshanim. Dodi li ve'ani lo haroeh b'shoshanim. Dodi Torah mihamidbar, mizot Torah mihamidbar. Dodi li ve'ani lo haroeh b'shoshanim. Dodi Shoshanim. Dodi li b'shoshanim. Dodi li.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.